with the first pick.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast presented by Stadium Rant. Today I'm joined by my co-hosts Lee Cook and Mason Beck. Today we're going to be talking about some more incoming rookies. We got some running backs to break down today. Got Trey Benson and Jonathon Brooks on the docket. We're also going to go over the latest NFL news. More and more breaking. We got some franchise tag talk. We got some, free agents impending. Really looking forward to that coming up mid-March here. But let's dive into the nitty-gritty. We got Trey Benson first up. 6'1", 223 pounds, 21 and a half years old, out of Florida State University. PFF has him on the big board as 134 overall. Trey Benson, I'll just start it right off the top. He is my number one rookie running back. I know there's some I feel like the consensus is leaning a little bit more towards Jonathon Brooks. And I know some people, we got some Blake Corum, we got some Braylon Allen, a little bit of here or there. It's not the top end talent that we've seen in prior rookie classes. However, I still think there's going to be a lot of production here, especially with the two running backs we're talking about today. We already seen a good amount of production out of them in college. Neither of them were the starter right out of the gate. Trey Benson played 2 years at Oregon. Really, that first year he didn't play at all. Kind of redshirt year there. And then 2 years at Florida State. But we saw the production come. Overall, in his career, 1,900 yards on the ground, averaged 6.1 yards per attempt. And then in that last season there, stayed at that 6.1 per clip average, 14 touchdowns. He was 39th in terms of yard after contact. He was a big play machine. So that was one of my biggest notes. He had a great 2022 with Florida State as well. But I digress. Let's move on to the positives here. I'll kick it over to Mason. What are some positives you saw when breaking down Trey Benson tape?
Well, one thing that I saw as a major positive is his ball security. Throughout his entire collegiate career, he never once fumbled the ball, which is pretty insane. Even the best fumble it. That's the number one thing that stood out. But actual talent wise, we're gonna go. He has great burst and acceleration. If he sees that hole, he's just gonna go right through it. That's really it. And then, he showed that he's good at pass catching, nothing outstanding or anything. But, if a running back can get you 3 or 4 catches a game in PPR leagues, even if they're only like 2-3 yard passes, those points add up.
Yeah. And just to add to your point, 316 career rushing attempts over 36 games, not a single fumble. That is something you love to see. Not going to get pulled by those old school coaches being like, you fumbled the ball once, you're out of the game. All right, Lee, what do you got for some of the positives here?
Yeah, I would definitely echo some of Mason's sentiments. A big thing for me, he only caught, 33 balls in college over his 2 years as a starter.
Yeah.
But his hands are just very natural. You didn't see him drop any passes. I think the route running, on that side could probably, improve a bit. But great burst and acceleration, but really good long speed. Doesn't seem to run out of gas on those big plays, where he really hits a fourth, fifth gear when he's trying to break away. And kind of to your point about being a big play machine, that's a huge part of it. It seemed like, just looking over the 2 seasons at Florida State, it seemed like his vision got better, which is a huge thing for an NFL running back. We know the holes are going to be smaller. The tacklers are going to be more sure. So just being able to have that vision. He's a violent runner. When he makes contact, he does not go down easy. Just the strength and balance combination. He's not a guy who's fallen down on first contact, very easy in college. We'll see how that translates. But really his size and frame combined with the speed and acceleration and now improved vision, to me, he looks like he could be a bell cow running back one for a team. He did – he had an injury, but he's pretty far removed from it. That was 2020. So, just the rebound and showing how well and how durable he's been since the injury is a big plus as well.
100%. That was one of the big notes that I had too. He injured ACL, MCL, LCL, tore his hamstring and his meniscus in practice in 2020. All that is about as bad of an injury as you can get, especially in practice. But like you said, pretty far removed from that. I think we've seen that he can take on a full workload. He had 154 and 156 rushing attempts over the past 2 years. Added another 20 receptions and 12 receptions over the last 2 years. So he can handle the workload. So touching on more of those positives, I agree with you, Lee. One of the biggest things that I had was great vision, especially at the secondary level. I felt like once he gets past that first tier of defenders, when he starts breaking into the linebackers, safeties, D backs, he's able to find those holes, even if it might not be, like the obvious option. I think that he's got great vision and is able to take those 10-yard runs and make them into 20, 30-yard runs. And then if he gets by the secondary, good luck catching them. So I saw an interview with him earlier. One of the things he touched on was like he was trusting his speed and athleticism more in his second year. And we saw that he had a ton of runs of 15 plus yards. Uh, he had 14, it was 36 out of 142. So nothing ridiculous, but still like top end speed. That is something that you want in your running back at the next level, especially, you're not running away from college DBs anymore. You got a next levels of speed to break away from. So yeah, top notes, home run hitter, 0 to 100 real quick. Boy gets off in a hurry, and 223 pounds, like he doesn't necessarily look like it, but he runs strong. You can see it. He's going to have a solid BMI for a guy that is 6 foot plus. So, something that is great to see for a guy that is, coming in the next level here. Let's touch on some negatives, though. We'll go with the same rotation. Mason, why don't you kick it off with some negatives?
To more go into the passing game for him, he's not a very good pass protector, and that will lead to situations where he might not be in on third down plays if it's a passing situation, and that might be as well why he didn't necessarily get a ton of catches in college, because he has to work on his pass blocking. I think that's something he does fix, though. It is something you just work on, get a little better. That can be something that's fixed, and then. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see he's not very good with passes down the field. Most of his throughout college were pretty short passes. I don't see him as a running back that ever really lines up in the wide receiver spot. So, it's really that. I don't have a ton of negatives. I really love Benson. He's probably my number one RB to go off the rookie class this year.
Let's go. I like hearing that. I agree. You don't see a ton of collegiate running backs getting downfield targets. Is usually like a special kind of player that's coming out that gets those types of targets. But I agree that the route tree is going to need some work at the next level. Lee, what do you got for your negatives here?
Yeah, so I had that as well. The pass protection. And that's always a concern for rookie running backs coming in, and can be a reason, like Mason said, that he's not on the field as much. Especially the old head, veteran coaches, and really anybody in today's passing league, you're going to be hesitant to play a guy for 3 downs if he can't block. But the other big one that's a bit of a concern to me is just how much of a magnet he is. He invites contact, and really a lot of those big runs that I saw were him inviting contact, being able to run over a guy, and then run away from everybody with the speed. So Is that going to translate as well to the NFL with bigger, faster, stronger, better tacklers? We'll see. But I do think a little more wiggle in his game is what he's going to have to really incorporate. Didn't see a ton of that because he didn't have to use it, between being able to break that first tackle and then just kind of run past people, being able to juke, spin, being able to make people miss a little bit more. And maybe avoiding the contact would be the other thing I'd worry a little bit about.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that as well. I saw quite a few portions where like he would run into somebody full speed, bounce back, and then like you're saying, head off in a completely different
Right.
direction. That's amazing. Love seeing that, but you're not going to get away with that too frequently in the NFL. They're going to be wrapping up a lot more frequently. And so it is great though to see that downfield head of steam, inviting contact. Everybody loves an angry run, like you can't be mad at that. And to be honest, not to give too many spoilers, but that's something I felt like the next guy we're going to be talking about kind of lacked. Even though he's got still a decent size on him, I felt like there was the lack of bringing in, inviting that contact. Remember, like Leonard Fournette in his rookie season, I forgot on who on Pittsburgh he did it to, but Leonard Fournette waved him on. He's like, "Come on, bring the hit. I got this," and then he picked up the first down. Still, that's the energy I want from my running back. And I think Trey Benson has that kind of energy, even though he's not necessarily a power runner. I would say that he at least brings in that contact and that energy. I had the same note. First and foremost, not a pass protector. That's going to hurt him on third downs. On top of him not having a huge pass catching profile, both of those things are going to hurt him. He's not going to see a ton of third downs, I think, in his first year in the NFL. But there's room to grow. He's a rookie. He's only 21 and a half years old. So there's going to be room to improve for almost every rookie. And then the other thing that I had here, I just thought that even though I think he has great vision in the second level, I think that his vision could improve a little bit behind the line. I felt like I saw him not too frequently, but more than preferred, running into some closed holes. Maybe again it's that ideology of like inviting contact. Like he wants to burst through the hole. But he's not quite the power runner that maybe like a Braylon Allen or like at the next level, obviously like a Derrick Henry is. So like, know your skill set and don't try to just power through the hole. Keep that patience. And again, I'm sure that's something that they'll work with him on at the next level. All right. Ideal landing spots, the fun part. You guys took a look at the whole league. Who do you think would be the best landing spot? I'll kick it. Oh, let's switch it up. We'll go Lee first this time.
I like him following in his Florida State alumni footsteps and going to Minnesota. I think Madison, that experiment's gone. They did speak very highly of Chandler this week, but I don't think he's a workhorse. I think there'd be an immediate opportunity in a very explosive offense if he could get to Minnesota.
I like Minnesota as well. I think that's a great opportunity there. I feel like the skill set didn't line up quite as much for me to mention him for Trey Benson. But Mason, I'm curious, who do you got as your ideal landing spot?
I'm going to say Houston because, I mean, they don't. I mean, Damian Pierce. With how bad of a season he had efficiency wise, I don't really see him even really getting another shot. Singletary, he's still contracted one more year, I believe, right? Or is he a free agent?
Singletary's a free agent right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I honestly think they might bring Singletary back. If they do that, it'd be a nice compliment. Singletary will be more the pass guy, but we got Benson, just being the workhorse. They need a workhorse there to support CJ Stroud. And if they don't really establish a true running game there, I think it could be a lot more dangerous for CJ Stroud. He's going to have so much pressure on him. They're going to be expecting the pass too much. That's just where I really see. And, D'Amico Ryans does come from a Kyle Shanahan system. And, Kyle Shanahan is pretty much a genius with the run most of the time, except when he decides to not really run it with McCaffrey in the second half of the Super Bowl. But,
Yeah, I don't hear about that at all, I can tell.
Not so much of a genius now, is he? All right. So the ideal landing spot I have is the Baltimore Ravens. J.K. Dobbins not only is injury prone as hell, but he is a free agent this year. So he shouldn't be in the mix. The Ravens already said that they do not plan on bringing back Gus Edwards. Keaton Mitchell is coming off of an ACL injury, and it was a late season ACL injury at that. So, all the opportunity in the world there with the Ravens, and on top of it, we already know they love to run the ball. Tons of open spaces created, between the RPO and just with behind that offensive line. It is a top 10 offensive line easily, if not top 5. So, that's the ideal landing spot I have for him. I think it'd both be a great scheme fit, and then on top of it, the opportunity is going to be there. So, really quick before we move on to our next one, we got a comment coming in. Can you guys make the top 5 backs, or can you rank the top 5 backs coming into the rookie draft? I already said my top guy, Trey Benson is my number 1. Jonathon Brooks is my number 2. Feels a tiny bit chalky there, but after that, I definitely think Braylon Allen is the next guy up. So young. He's just, yeah. I see where you're going, Lee. I'll kick it to you next. But yeah, I got Braylon Allen next. Honestly, I'm not a huge Blake Corum guy, so I have him down at 5 with my 4 being Audric Est- I always mess up his name. Audric Estime. Yeah, help me out. Struggling, boys.
Sounds good to me.
Whiskey's hitting early.
Got it.
All right. So, Audric Estime, I do think that he's a little bit more well-rounded. Blake Corum's still a great talent. I just didn't see a trump card in his skill set. So, Lee, I already saw you pointing up. I think I know who your number 1 might be, but why don't you kick it?
Yeah, so Braylon Allen, I'm just I love everything I've seen out of him. The age, the size, I think he'll be durable. I actually think I could see him going to Baltimore. That would be my ideal landing spot for him as a sneak peek.
Like a Gus Edwards replacement.
Yeah, absolutely. With more pop.
More catching ability.
So number 2, I do have Benson at number 2, and I think a lot of it's going to be situational dependent. Of course, we'll see when we get there. I have Blake Corum at 3. Number 4 would be Bucky Irving. I think I see the pass catching ability is really going to translate in today's NFL, especially in a PPR format. I think he's going to be very valuable, right out of the gate. And I got Brooks at 5. Just a little concerned, and then we'll get into it. But especially year 1, we'll get into the concerns when we break down Brooks.
All right.
Mason? Yeah. I mean, honestly, Lee, I'm pretty much there with you, except I got Trey Benson as number 1, Braylon Allen as my number 2, Corum 3, Bucky Irving 4, and Jonathon Brooks 5. Like you said, I mean, I like the style that Brooks is. I don't know. I don't necessarily see him being a top guy ever in the league. I mean, he could prove me wrong. I don't know.
That's very interesting. I do feel like overall, I hear the consensus more leaning towards Jonathon Brooks as the number 1 overall. Even PFF has them on the big board. Let me see. I know that their number 1 running back. Let me check exactly where. Yeah, they have him at 57 overall, with the next running back 25 picks behind them being Jalen Wright. So feels like the overall consensus is leaning Jonathon Brooks. Obviously, people miss on rookies every year. One name that we brought up, Tyler again, he says, but talk about Dylan Lobb from UNH. He can catch 60 balls per year. It's just guys that solely lean on the run game that are not in the Power 5 schools. It gives me a little bit of worry. We'll see at the next level, but with it being such a running back by committee league at this point, I wouldn't want to lean on him. As like we're talking fantasy, we're talking dynasty here. I wouldn't want to lean on a guy that's reliant pretty much solely on the pass catching game. I don't see him getting a ton of work on the ground. But maybe he breaks into that like Austin Eckler type of role where he proves himself more and more and gets some work on the ground.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't catch many New Hampshire games this year. I haven't
Fair enough.
haven't had a chance to see much tape yet. I'm sure I'll get into it, but yeah, I don't really want to comment because I don't know much about the kid right now.
Fair enough.
I'm the same way. I have not done much studying on him. I'm still kind of, for my own personal research, still going through the second round as far as my prospects. So I'll get to him
right?
at some point.
Right. We're still breaking it down more and more as the season goes. But yeah, I mean, just to touch on it really quickly, in any year that he had over 100 rush attempts, he did not average more than 5 yards per attempt. He did have one season at 1,205 rushing yards. That was at 4.9 yards per attempt, so just under. But he spent 5 years in college. You know, the guy's not the youngest prospect. He's not like the most. He doesn't give me anything that is shouting, "Let's go and get this guy." Maybe we'll see where the landing spot falls. Maybe he falls into a team like, the Chargers, who need a running back bad and are already very used to filling like giving the running back a lot of opportunity there. The pass catching role, very enticing. If you're in a full PPR, definitely makes him it shoots him up a little bit higher on the list. But that being said, I don't think in the NFL he is going to be used too much on the ground. All right. So that is going to bring us to the realistic landing spots. It's running back. Like I said before, PFF had him on the big board at 134 overall. So at that point, every team's going to have at least three, if not four shots at him, if that falls to be true. But let's see what you guys got for the realistic landing spot on Trey Benson. I'll kick it Mason first.
Sadly, I mean, if we're kind of going off that, I think Panthers. Sadly, I don't
Okay.
really like it because they definitely need a running back. I mean, Chuba, he produced a good amount this season, but Miles Sanders just is not going to cut it at all. They definitely need to give Bryce Young some help, and I mean, just a solid running back, a tough runner like Trey Benson would really help out. A guy like Bryce Young. Obviously, if if Benson could improve a little bit on his pass blocking, that would more make me want him to be there to help Bryce. But I can definitely see Panthers going after running back relatively early in this year's draft.
Okay, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, I still think the Vikings are realistic, but to go with another one that I also think would be a realistic spot and wouldn't be bad would be the Giants. Especially with Barkley walking, they're going to need a running back. They're definitely going to draft a running back in the first 3 rounds. I would expect probably the second or third round.
I also had the Giants. I had the Giants because I think the same way. Barkley's likely on the way out. There was conflicting reports that hopefully we'll have some time for the NFL news at the end of this, but there's conflicting reports. Adam Schefter reported that there is a low likelihood that they franchise tag them. The GM came out and said it's not off the table. We might still franchise tag them. I don't think that they will. I think that would create a real messy situation. And I think that the Giants will be running back needy enough to reach for him. I put the Ravens down as well because they also have a clear need at running back. They're a run-centric team. They don't have a ton of wide receivers on that roster. So I do think that the Ravens are both an ideal and realistic landing spot for them. But, I do think the Giants will jump the gun of the two teams there. Ravens do a great job in terms of drafting every year. They grab positions that are of high need. Not high need, but like high importance. They don't go reaching for those running backs in round one like you see the Falcons do and then not use them. So that's who I got for player style comp. Player style comp for all y'all out there. Who do you got for your player style comp? I am interested. Lee, you said you got a good one here.
This is the tippy top of his window. If he comes in and just completely excels, but I see some of the same running style. Todd Gurley.
Interesting.
That's what I got too.
Okay. Is that what you had too? You said, Mason?
Yeah, no, I mean, just those strong runs. I just see it. Like I see a little bit of Gurley in him.
I mean, I would love that. But like one of the first few years I got like die hard into fantasy, like 12 fantasy teams I'm managing. I had Gurley on 2 of them, fully carried me to the championship. if you guys can keep on selling me on this Benson Gurley comp here, I might just have to reach for this boy. But yeah, I got personally what I had was Antonio Gibson without the pass catching profile, but more grit on the ground. He Antonio Gibson, he still ran with a decent amount of power in his game, but he was more so known for being that wide receiver transitioning into a running back. That's why I specifically put without the pass catching profile. I just felt like on the ground and both and as well as their size. They are incredibly similar. Both have top end speed. Both have the size to truck some boys, but they don't necessarily capitalize on that every opportunity they get. All right. So production comp though. I'll kick it off this time. As the high end, I said Isaiah Pacheco if he continues this production. I could see him, Pacheco's not touted on his pass catching ability. He can do it, but it's not like what he's known for. Runs angry, but is not necessarily the biggest running back out there. The mid level, I had Antonio Gibson, kind of like I already talked about. And then low end, Khalil Herbert. That's if they don't end up utilizing the pass catching ability at all. I thought Khalil Herbert was a pretty apt comparison. Mason, who do you got for your production count?
I mean, I'm just gonna say Todd Gurley again. I could see him putting up those numbers that Todd
Whoa.
Gurley did.
Whoa.
I'm really high up on Trey Benson. I mean,
I
I
love
don't know
Trey.
about low. What I think low. I mean, I think low wise, he could honestly get stuck into just a pretty bad role like Elijah Mitchell's kind of in, which really hurts me to say.
Okay.
Just a guy that's got this burst and these strong
Yeah.
runs, but just is stuck behind a solid RB or something. I mean,
I like that as a low end comp though. I think both in play style and production comp. I think that's a solid comp for low end. Lee, what do you got here?
Kenneth Walker. I can see him having very similar production to Kenneth Walker, being a guy who 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 80 yards to the house, type of guy.
Right.
If he gets the opportunity, I think he will produce in a similar manner. I definitely could see some ups and downs with that, but yeah, I could see a Kenneth Walker. And for a low end, I'm going to dig deep into the bag. Trung candidate. Anybody remember Trung?
I honestly don't.
No.
Who is that?
He was a backup to Marshall Faulk with the Rams, and he did come to Washington for a couple of years. But I mean, he's kind of a bruiser. Never really got that opportunity to be a RB1. He was always a good change of pace guy, but never really broke through beyond that.
Okay. That's probably why I never heard of him. If you're behind Marshall Faulk, you probably don't see the field too much. Even with me being a Browns fan, my first jersey was a Marshall Faulk jersey. I freaking love that dude. Could do everything at the top end, whether it was pass pro or catching the ball, running the ball. He was just the complete package.
I believe the Rams actually drafted him to be Marshall's replacement, maybe late first or early second. Right towards the tail end, and it just never materialized.
Oh. All right. So we got our Dynasty Superflex trade value. Right now on Fantasy Pros, he is currently listed as the RB47. Pretty deep down the totem pole here. We've seen other running backs come in. Obviously, we've talked about it. It is not the top end running back class, but even for a top 3 running back in the class, RB47 is pretty damn low. So some guys that are listed over him on the Fantasy Pros Dynasty ranking that I would easily trade to get Trey Benson. Zach Moss, Damian Pierce, AJ Dillon, Tyler Algier, Devin Singletary, and Chuba Hubbard. Could not believe that those guys were listed above Trey Benson personally. I get that there was the injury, but he's still a young back coming in. And these guys are either showing that they have not been able to produce with the volume that they're given, or they're still young and they just don't have that promise. So, what do you guys think, though?
I mean, honestly, right now, just because I mean, I think he's going to be way better than this person has been the last couple of years, but like kind of like Najee sort of areas
Okay.
where I'd go into kind of trade for Benson and feeling okay with it. Obviously, that could change after the draft if Benson's in a bad location. But yeah, that's kind of where I think. I mean, I do think Benson will be better, but taking a rookie, there's always that risk.
Yes, right, and it'll be easier once the draft day comes and we see the landing spot. Lee, who do you got here?
As far as a player, and I'd be interested in your guys' takes here. And obviously, as Mason said, the landing spot matters. But Zach Charbonnet, would you trade Zach Charbonnet for Trey Benson?
I would trade away Zach Charbonnet for Trey Benson solely because of the landing spot. If you didn't land behind a rookie that is highly touted, was shown that in Charbonnet's rookie year, when Walker's fully healthy, the splits were atrocious for Charbonnet. He wasn't getting much looks. And, Walker's going to be on the team for at least another 2 years if he doesn't get extended. If Charbonnet was on even like, let's say the Patriots, where I would say he would still be comfortably behind Stevenson, he still has a role that he can take over next year. I would then lean more towards Charbonnet. But right now it's not looking good for the next 2 years of his career.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
would as well.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Charbonnet. I never really have been. Just ever since once he landed in Seattle. I mean, I know Dan likes him, but
I
used to
love
like.
the talent,
Yeah,
but landing spot sucked.
but yeah, no, I mean, he's never going to beat out Kenneth Walker unless Walker gets
Yeah,
hurt. That's the only time Charbonnet's really going to be producing.
right. Completely agreed there. All right, so this brings us to the last portion for Trey Benson. Where would you draft him in a superflex rookie draft? I have him at 110. I got Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Brock Bowers, Troy Franklin, Romo Dunze, Brian Thomas Jr., and then Trey Benson there, just ahead of Keon Coleman, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and then Jonathan Brooks.
That's a little early for my taste, to be honest. I mean, I think JJ is probably going to go mid to late first round, and a super flex. I think that automatically bumps his value up. To me, the beginning of the second round, probably around 202 to 203, would be more likely where I would be looking for.
Okay, Mason?
I got him 201, 202. I'm not drafting a single running back in the first this year. That's just kind of what I've decided. I mean, I really do like Trey Benson, but I'm not spending a first on him. Just the first value. As far as trade goes, you go, hey, I'm going to trade off my first. You can get more than Trey Benson for trading that away.
That is, I do think that's a good point to make. You could probably trade away a first round pick and get something that's more guaranteed than Trey Benson. Obviously, all of this is said before the NFL draft. Let's see where the landing spot is. Sure, that will drastically affect, up or down wherever he goes. But, if he lands in one of the ideal landing spots we mentioned, one of them I didn't mention, the Cowboys, they're moving on from Tony Pollard. If he landed there, I would be absolutely buying in on Trey Benson, probably even earlier than the 110. Or if he landed on the Ravens, Giants are just such a terrible offense. It's going to be hard even with all that volume. But we'll see where he goes, and I'm sure that we'll have plenty of more episodes talking about where these rookies are moving. This is going to bring us to the next rookie on the list. We got Jonathan Brooks out of University of Texas. Boyo is 6 foot tall, 207 pounds, just 20.6 years old, so about a full year younger than Trey Benson is. He put up great production. He got injured in this last season. Really unfortunate injury. November 11th against TCU, he tore his ACL in game. An ACL injury on average in the NFL about 8 to 10 months before they can return to full activity. There are already reports from Ian Rappaport saying that Jonathan Brooks should be cleared by training camp. We all know, everybody's ahead of schedule until you're not. And I think that once we start getting towards training camp, we'll see that it's probably going to be more of a like, let's get him involved maybe the last game of the preseason, give him a little bit of taste, and then start easing him in throughout the year. Definitely not a guy that I'm looking like. On average, I believe it's 2.5 running backs that finish within the top 12 running backs. Did I say that right? So I'll say it one more time. There are 2.5 rookies that finish within the top 12 running backs each year in the NFL, I believe over the last decade or so. So likely, if that trend continues, we're going to see Trey Benson and or Jonathan Brooks in there. However, with this injury, I am steering clear of him unless there is a big old drop, like a big old injury drop in ADP. Staying away from him in redraft. Still, obviously, dynasty is a different animal. You're not really weighing in a injury too much into the draft capital there. But you know, Jonathan Brooks has showed the ability to force missed tackles. Even in his 10 games played this season, he was 11 out of 142 running backs in missed tackles forced. 63 missed tackles forced. That is a great number to see. Before this year, he didn't have a ton of opportunity, being behind both Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson. That's a tough depth chart to climb up. He was on track to an incredible year, got injured around game 10, but we'll see how it evolves moving into this year. Let's move into the positives here. Lee, I'll kick it off to you first for the positives on Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, so not bad speed, probably above average. But what really stood out to me was the acceleration, 0 to 60 very quickly, which is probably more valuable in the NFL than just top end speed. It's being able to hit the hole and hit it fast. He's quick, change of direction. Kind of comparing him just because we did see him make more defenders miss in space. He's got that wiggle when he gets out there that he's not easy to tackle if you don't touch him. He's hard to put the beat on. Pretty functional, as far as his pass catching. I think it was 25 catches this year. So there's a lot of positives there. His age as well. He's 20. He'll be 21. When he starts out next year. As a rookie. We'll see. That injury to me is a concern even in dynasty to some degree, but the age negates it. If he was a 23, 24-year-old running back coming into the league, and you tell me that there's a good chance he's going to miss some or be slowed some in his rookie year, you only get so many years for value from running backs. And to me, if he were a little bit older, that would be more of a concern. But his age is a plus.
Yeah, for sure. Mason?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I really saw from him is just the good speed and acceleration. The dude is fast. I mean, he's not one of the fastest guy we've seen in the league. A-Chain's faster. I mean, obviously Tyreek's faster, but I mean, he's got good speed and acceleration. And I mean, like Lee said, the 25 catches. He's shown that he can catch the ball. Although 25 isn't anything like wow, outstanding. It's at least enough to prove that he is viable in the pass game.
Yeah.
His field vision is also pretty good. Like you said, he does make guys miss. Doesn't necessarily mean he breaks contact well, but he can get them to miss.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of what I had there. Solid speed, not great game-breaking speed. Like he's not going to make NFL DBs. He's not going to get ahead of them. He's not going to, break away these 60, 70 yard runs, but he can consistently break off 15 plus. The acceleration and agility is elite. I do think that he lacks the contact balance. Sometimes people get a little piece of him, and he looks a little goofy after. Guy's putting himself in a bad position afterwards, and maybe that's one of the reasons why he runs into a big ACL injury like this. Hopefully, we don't see that pattern repeat. Of course, wish for nothing but good health for these players. But the vision and the bend is what I noticed, especially around the line of scrimmage. I think that he does a good job of picking up where the hole will be, and then get just a little bit of bend, even though he's a 6 foot dude over 200. Definitely above average bend in order to get around some of those weird arm tackles situations in the hole. And then, even though I wouldn't say he is necessarily a fluent pass catcher, he's shown the ability to catch passes consistently, kind of in a similar fashion to Trey Benson. But he's got more opportunity to show that he can do it. So this brings us over to the negative side. I'll lead it off here. I said, despite his decent size, he is not a power runner. We look for guys to at least hit that like 205-pound mark. You want him to be at least well over that. Hopefully, I personally would prefer someone to be about 215, 220 in the NFL, especially at 6 foot. But he's not a power runner. When he's knocked off balance, he goes down at first contact. So and I said little to no truck stick as kind of a side note to that. He slows down his feet at the point of contact, and that's what I was bringing up earlier. I feel like he's got the vision to understand maybe there is a hole. But I feel like he's always trying to make that second cut rather than like making the first cut, make the first guy miss, then take on contact and just power through that run. Even if you get tackled, pick up the extra 3-4 yards. I didn't see that. I saw him when the second contact comes, he's slowing down his feet, trying to make that guy miss as well, and then ends up just getting knocked down right at that point. And so like the side note to that is just he gets too cute, you know. I know if Jonathan Brooks saw that, he'd probably beat me up and he'd do so easily. But no, thank you, Lee. I appreciate you, man. Yeah, let's go, boys. You got my back. Come at me, Jonathan Brooks. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't. Please don't. I got a family and a girlfriend to worry about, so don't mess me up. But no, he's an inconsistent pass blocker as well. So that's just like, even though he has I would say, average pass catching ability because he's not fluent with it. Uh, when you're not a consistent pass blocker and not a plus in the passing game, you're probably going to get subbed out for the veterans that are on the roster that can get that job done. So early in his career, between the injuries and the lack of pass pro and fluent pass catching ability, I don't think he's going to see a lot of third downs early in his career. Maybe that'll change based on landing spot, but we'll see how that goes. Lee, I'm gonna send it your way. What are some of the negatives you picked up?
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely agree. With kind of your main point there. Just first contact, he goes down a ton. Doesn't move a pile. That's a concern. At the NFL level, because you do ultimately have to break some tackles. Unless you're Devon A-Chain and you're just outrunning everybody, which he does not have that speed. And as you said, kind of just echoing, he doesn't tend to hit the hole at full speed. So it almost makes you wonder if he's a little bit hesitant with the contact. You cannot slow down hitting a hole in the NFL. You're gonna get pushed backwards, but B, it just seems like a recipe for injury. When you're slowing down and you've got these, mammoth men running at you full speed, it's not going to end well. I do think is pass protection as well, not to kind of harp on that, just like we did Benson, but he just seemed a little uninterested in pass protection at times. Again, that's something that can be improved, but we'll see. If you're going to be on the field, you got to be able to pass block and really commit to it. And I didn't see that in the film a ton.
Yeah. And Mason?
Honestly, to touch on both your guys' points, yeah, he's not a big contact guy. Like you said, he goes down on first contact typically, doesn't look like he wants to really hit the hole and go into the contact. And what that really worries me is he going to get touches in the red zone? Like, I mean,
very good point.
I mean, if you take away half of the touchdowns because he's not playing in the red zone, that's why I have him so ranked low in my running backs, is because I really don't think he's going to score much touchdowns.
That's a fantastic point. Honestly, that could drop him below Braylon Allen for me because obviously he is the polar opposite of that. That guy is going to get the red zone work, and he has enough pass catching ability to at least rack up, 15, 20 receptions on the year, which will help. And then one thing, as you guys were bringing up your points, like we all talked about how he's not hitting the hole with power, and when you have an ACL injury like he just had, that's not going to help that. He's probably going to shy away from contact even more than we've already seen him do. So I think that's a big point. You guys honestly might have just dropped him one spot in my ranking there. I love it. I love it.
Team
Let's see it.
Braylon.
Let's go, Braylon Allen. Oh man, and he's gonna be, again, something here is not like the other. People are gonna want to capitalize on that one power back. I think he has a chance to jump up boards here. You guys are out there already drafting your dynasty leagues, like the degens that we are. Maybe take that shot on Braylon Allen. Maybe get him. What do you guys think? Let's just sidetrack real quick here. Braylon Allen, where would you draft him in a rookie startup? I'm sorry, rookie mock draft.
112.
112.
Yeah, I'm like 201 to 203. I mean, I'm pretty much going Trey Benson, then probably Braylon Allen.
Yeah, I mean, I had Jonathan Brooks at 202. I think Braylon Allen just replaced him, and I'll move Jonathan Brooks down a spot here.
Out of that stat you named earlier, the 2.5, rookie running backs that are, was it at least RB2, top 24?
Top 12.
Top 12. Okay, that's even better. Braylon could be 1.5 of those. He's a big enough boy. He could be 1.5 of those.
Take up a full spot and a half. Get out of here, Jonathan Brooks. All right, so ideal landing spots. Personally, I had the Cardinals just because he's got the pass catching profile enough to the point where they can utilize it. The Cardinals did not take him enough. Oh man, my bad, Mason. My bad, Mason. Where you had Braylon Lee?
Oh no, I already said it. I just said that into the chat as a joke because Lee traded me the 109, and now I kind of want to take Braylon Allen.
Oh, you just said that you ain't gonna take a running back in the top round.
But that would be funny because he traded me the 109, and I
the
take
109, and then you jump ahead of him and steal his running back.
I could use our young running back in that league too.
Sometimes dynasty is about spite. Go out there, steal your boys' picks, and then trade him for more than he's worth. So we'll see how that works. I do like the strat.
I'm not actually.
So yeah, I have Cardinals as the ideal landing spot. They have so I'll just jump the gun. Not only is it in my ideal landing spot, I think it's a realistic landing spot. The Cardinals have 5 different picks in the top 100. I'm sorry, 6 picks in the top 100. They have the 4th overall, 27th, 35th, 66th, 71st, and 90th. 6 picks in the top 6. They can jump the gun, take whatever running back that they want to. James Conner on the last year of his deal. James Conner's proven efficient for him. He actually got his first 1,000-yard rushing season with them this past season. He's been doing well. However, he's getting older. He's not being used as much as I think he could be in the passing game. And overall, I think that they are going to be looking to replace him for the future, especially since they have really, really missed on their rookie running back picks the last 2 years. So I like Jonathan Brooks landing there. The secondary one I had, Lee mentioned earlier, was the Vikings. Just open opportunity. Guys are younger there, but he's got the passing chops to get it done. And he's also, with the injury for both of these teams, James Conner can take over the beginning portion of the year, whereas Alexander Madison and help me, boys, Ty Chandler can they can take over the beginning portion of the year while Jonathon Brooks starts to step into that 1A role. What do you guys think? I'm gonna kick it to Mason first this time.
It's almost going to be my ideal and realistic spot. I'm going to go Denver. To Sean Payton, because one, realistic, that team desperately needs speed. Like, they're not a very fast moving team. And I think just like him and Javonte, they're kind of different style guys. I think they'd be a good complement to each other. I don't think it would hurt any of their values too much having the other guy there just because they are a little different. I feel like Brooks would be the more first down guy, maybe first, second down guy. Javonte is going to be the more third down guy. Neither one of them are necessarily the greatest pass catchers, which leaves work open to both of them for potentially catching passes. I just see it as a good fit. Sean Payton's shown in the past that he can work two running backs into fantasy efficiency. I mean, we saw with Ingram and Kamara one year where they were both just amazing. But yeah, I really like him going to Denver.
Lee?
In the same division, but a little bit further west, the Raiders. Josh Jacobs is leaving. Zamir White has a very different running style, more of a, between the tackles, breaking tackles, putting his nose down, inviting contact. And I could see him getting work there, when he's healthy, but he doesn't have to immediately, as we said with some of the other spots, doesn't have to immediately come in and be that guy. But we've also seen in the limited tenure of Antonio Pierce head coach that they are committed to the run game. So you would think there'd be enough, pie to split around. They're not bringing back Josh Jacobs on a tag. I mean, they said that, and not to spoil the news we talked about later. So I think that'd be a really good spot for them.
Yeah, no, I do like the Raiders. Now that we're talking about it, I do feel like Trey Benson would be a slightly better fit there, just with the lightning with Trey Benson and then the power with Zamir White. But I do like that still. And then I'm sorry, Mason. Who is the team you brought up again?
Denver.
Denver. Okay, yeah. Javonte is so well rounded. It's hard to imagine like a compliment to him just because he does everything pretty well. But the one thing that Javonte absolutely has is the contact balance. And we already talked about it. Jonathon Brooks does not have that. So however they could compare the two, that would be interesting to see. Let's run over this quick so we get some NFL news mixed in here. Production comp, I got high end for Jonathon Brooks is Joe Mixon. Mid is James Conner. Low is Chuba Hubbard. And then really quickly, I have him at the 2-0. Now the 203. Because y'all have convinced me of the Braylon Allen hype. So I got him at 203.
Yeah, I think I would say player comp and potentially production. Jerome Ford, he reminds me of Jerome Ford. I think he's going to have to get his, make his bones on the outside, catching passes as well. So I could definitely see some Jerome Ford in his game. As far as a low end production comp, I mean, I could definitely see him also being a guy who just never really materializes. Trying to think of a name there, but none of them's really coming to mind at the moment. But just one of those guys that maybe a Zach Charbonnet type production where he never really gets the chance to get in unless the guy in front of him is hurt or just a change of speed dude.
Yeah, I could see that with the injury weighing in. Like they draft him to a team that has a running back, and then by the time he's healthy, he's an afterthought. Mason?
High end, I kind of got like Mostert. I mean, I don't think he's going to ever be an RB2 or whatever Mostert was at some season, but he could have some big breakout games like that where he's just running down the sideline. He's not as fast as Mostert, but he's got some speed where he can make those runs, and I think he'll have that. But I think he'll also have some games where you're just like, why did I even start this dude? I don't see him enough skill set from him to ever really be a workhorse. So
Yep.
I'm a huge fan. But I'm drafting him 206, maybe a little later. I'm trying to stay
Okay.
away from Brooks.
Yeah, you guys definitely had him a little bit later in the ranks than I did, but I can see the argument both ways, especially like we've been saying. When you have that injury, it's a little bit difficult to see the immediate path, and the lack of an immediate path can end up correlating to no path. You know, NFL is a what are you doing for me now type of league. So, all right, let's crank through this NFL news. There's a ton of stuff out here right now, so I'm going to start off with the official news. We got T. Higgins receives the franchise tag from the Bengals. That's going to be $21.8 million fully guaranteed. Overall, I think this is beneficial to T. Higgins' dynasty value because obviously he had the down year due to injury in this past season. Injuries have been a frequent thing for him. But I do think that another year in the system, he can show what he has to give. And then next season, he can go out, grab that bag. He's still a very young player. So I like this overall for T. Higgins' value. Really quickly, what do you guys think? Do you think it's a positive or a negative for T. Higgins?
I'm really mixed on it. I think it helps his floor but hurts his ceiling. Staying with Joe Burrow, hoping that he's going to have a fully healthy season this year. You can definitely do much worse than that, but he's still going to be the number 2 option. He's always going to be the number
Right.
2 option behind Jamar, unless Jamar's hurt. There were some scenarios where he could have went to a really strong quarterback and been the number 1 option. The GM did leave the door open that they would be open to possibly trading him if the right offer, where they completely shut that door last year. So we could see something happen there. I don't know that we will, with how strong this wide receiver class is, and probably what the Bengals would, what it would require, with a franchise tag. But yeah, ultimately, like I said, a mixed bag, but I think it definitely helps his floor.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am the same there with you. I mean, just Joe Burrow is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Where else is he really going to find a quarterback with that much talent?
Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, hope not. That would be a nightmare. Oh man, yeah. I mean that's what I was thinking too. That would be his better location, but there's no way Cincinnati is going to trade T. Higgins to Kansas City. There's no way in that. But
100%. 100%. They're not doing anything to let Kansas City get better unless they think they are truly screwing them over.
oh yeah,
So I agreed with that there. Let's go to more official news. We got Demarcus Robinson has re-signed with the Rams for a 1-year, $5 million contract. Very team friendly. This is the wide receiver 3 on their team. However, he really produced on the back half of the season. Guy was putting up true numbers. We saw them produce in the front half with Puka when Cooper Kupp got back. We still saw Tutu Atwell having some production. So now we got Demarcus Robinson, more of a vet in the league, more proven, and still the number 3 in a Sean McVay offense. Let's kick it this way. What if you guys are in a redraft league? Are you willing to draft Demarcus Robinson towards the end of your draft?
not really. I think Rams are going to be drafting another wide receiver relatively early this year. Cooper Kupp is getting old. There is a lot of injury concerns. And, if they get a nice young combo going between Puka and whoever they bring in, I think it will be good for their future. I just think Demarcus Robinson will kind of fall into that 3A, 3B sort of role as wide receiver. And, I don't think there's going to be a ton of consistency there.
Okay.
I would also say no. For me, those late round redraft picks, you're really looking for the home run swings. And if you miss, you can just cut the guy. I don't really see that ceiling there for DeMarcus. And, he's probably going to produce enough. You're not necessarily going to want to cut him either. So I just think there's going to be a lot, especially with all these rookies coming in, there's going to be a lot bigger swings you can take and guys you can just cut if it doesn't materialize.
Personally, I'm on the other side of the board. I will say that I would happily take Robinson with the last 2 or 3 round pick there. In his last 5 weeks, 6 weeks here, from week 13 on, 15.5, 13.6, 14.7, 20.2, and 13.2 in the last 5 weeks of the season. That is with a fully healthy Cooper Kupp, a fully healthy Puka Nacua. That's just as their wide receiver 3. He had some touchdown, we'll say fortune there. He had 4 touchdowns in those 5 games. However, I think there is the wide receiver 3 role that is going to, like, reap the rewards. Who When you see what Puka Nacua can do and Cooper Kupp can do, uh, like, who are you gonna cover? You're gonna leave Demarcus Robinson one-on-one, and Matthew Stafford will take advantage of those opportunities, especially with a big-bodied wide receiver. I think that there's more of this to come. I personally think if they take a wide receiver, it'll be late. I think that this team is on the ascension. They finally got their first round pick. The Rams have their first round pick since 2016, where they took Jared Goff, which is insane. But I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities come from the wide receiver 3 role there. And on top of it, let's just say one of the two goes down. They're both quick twitch dudes. One of them goes down with injury. Demarcus Robinson immediately shoots up into wide receiver 2 territory. So I like Demarcus Robinson as a late round flyer, but a lot of time to come between that and redraft season.
I
If
like
you
him a
guys
lot more for best ball, just because
best
he will
ball,
have some boom weeks. I don't see. It's tough to picture that road for him to be you feel confident starting him week in and week out.
that's fair.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Is if I draft him with one of those picks, he's just going to sit on my bench all week, unless or all season. Unless Puka or Cup goes down, which Cup is injury prone, so it could happen. But I would never really start him unless I was really really weak at wide receiver.
In the same breath, I feel like what you're aiming for, like, so what you search for in best ball is upside. What you
Yeah,
search for in the later rounds of your draft is upside. So, like, I'm willing to take the risk on Demarcus Robinson. Nobody wants to draft a handcuffed wide receiver. But one of the reasons I would go after this wide receiver 3 is because he's already shown the ability to get not only just the touchdown upside, but he got volume during that time. Again, that same 5 game span, he had 5, 10, 3, 6, and 10 targets. He had 55, 46, 44, 82, and 92 receiving yards, and he got 1 touchdown in 4 out of those 5 games. Like, that's the upside that I'm looking for in a late round draft pick. Again, obviously a lot of season to go, but we'll see what happens here. You guys are listening on the radio transmission. That's not the right word, but roll with it.
Broadcast.
There you go, the radio podcast. We are ending it here, but we're going to talk a little bit more NFL news. Make sure to tune into the Stadium Rant YouTube channel. You can catch the full podcast plus more. We're going to be talking a little bit more NFL news here to wrap up the pod. But yeah, so we got Michael Pittman. The Colts GM Chris Ballard has acknowledged that the franchise tag is a possibility for the impending free agent Michael Pittman Jr. However, it's reported that it's not likely. What do you guys think on the likelihood of Pittman landing back in Indianapolis? And does it create a big discrepancy, we'll say, between if he lands on the Colts or if he ends up going to a different team? Lee, kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a young quarterback, we'll see how Anthony Richardson develops. But he's the unquestioned number one receiver. He's going to be the number one target getter. Having Jonathan Taylor back for a full season, I think it's solid to keep him in that same offense. I think his ceiling is always going to be a bit limited unless he has some of those outlier touchdown seasons, but really solid floor where he's at, especially in a full point PPR. He's going to get a ton of targets in that Colts offense. Of course, there's always that pipe dream because Everybody knows Kansas City needs wide receivers. So, again, it's within the AFC. That's really the one upgrade. But let's just say he went to the Panthers.
Ooh,
That's not an upgrade. There's definitely some places he could go that would not be upgrades. So,
right.
being that unquestioned number one in an offense that scored points this past season, even with backup running backs, backup quarterbacks, a lot of young players. I like the future for Pittman in Indianapolis, and I don't see them letting him go. He's going to be back.
Yeah, no, I see him staying there too, just because, I mean, when you think about it, Indy, they're putting a lot into Anthony Richardson, and they're not just going to, they don't really have a ton of other people. I mean, Josh Downs is their number two. I got a lot of Josh Downs, so I'd be okay if Pittman left, but I don't see the Colts moving on from him. He's been good for them for years, and, I think that him and Richardson, they could be hoping that those are their guys going forward for the next at least 4 or 5 years.
Right, there's just too much consistency there. Even though the reports are not necessarily saying that like he's going to be coming back, I do think he's going to be commanding a big contract after the year that he had. 156 targets, 109 receptions, 1,152 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. Lee, you touched on it. He has never had a season above 6 receiving touchdowns. If he could improve on that, he is shooting up in the ranks. I do think that he could become easily a wide receiver one in the right system. However, in this RPO option heavy, the Eagles went from the number one RPO offense to the Colts this past year. What is the common thread there? They're head coach / offensive coordinator. So I think that is going to be a little bit tough to come to continue at this volume. However, I do think that if they bring him back, Anthony Richardson has supported him enough to the point where I think this is going to be a positive rather than a negative. You touched on it. If he goes to the Chiefs, amazing. We can definitely chalk that up as a W, but I don't think that's going to happen. So let's move on to the next piece of news here. We got a multitude of running backs: Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, all reported as unlikely to be franchise tagged. Let's take all of them, obviously very different running styles. Let's say, what is the best situation they can fall into? The 4 running backs here. Who would you rather have them go to? Mason, I'll kick it off to you first.
I don't hope it happens, but Derrick Henry to the Rams. I think that would be awesome for him. I mean, just McVay there. Kyron's good and all, but Derrick Henry's the king. You throw him in at the goal line. I mean, mixed in with McVay's mindset, I could just see that being absolutely dangerous and, still giving Henry the chances to break off for these big runs. I think his usage would go down massively, but I still think he would get enough shots to be still very fantasy relevant.
Lee, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Derrick Henry, the Ravens has been the big rumor. I think he's the betting favorite to end up in Baltimore. That would be a good offense, a good situation. I think you got about one more year, and we saw a little bit of a decline, but he still was a solid running back this past season. He might have to carry a little too much of the load with Keaton and J.K. Dobbins. Who knows what's going to happen with Dobbins, but Keaton coming off the injury as well. But it's a potent offense. He's going to get a lot of goal line work, so a lot of scoring opportunity, and that's really where he's going to make his bones in fantasy at this point. I think for Tony Pollard, ideally he winds up back in Dallas on a team-friendly deal. They're not going to tag him, but they've got to find a replacement. He's still young enough. He was coming off the injury. A lot of the metrics did improve later in the season. So, I don't know that he would find a better situation than that. But again, not to go back to the well, but if he were to leave, I think the Raiders, as a 1-2 punch with Zamir White, would potentially be a good spot for Tony. Austin Eckler needs to be somewhere where he can just catch passes, and he's not allowed to run between the tackles at this point. So it's really tough. I mean, to me, for Eckler, and this isn't probably the best thing for his fantasy value, but being a backup in San Francisco on a vet minimum, trying to chase a ring. McCaffrey does miss a game or two occasionally. Be the guy to spell McCaffrey. That would probably be the best thing career-wise for him. And who was there? Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, to me, Minnesota wouldn't be a bad spot. I mean, there's some teams that need running backs, and he could potentially still be a bell cow there. Ty Chandler's a good contrast in styles, so I don't think that would be bad. I would put him there.
Just to build on what you're saying, I think Austin Eckler would have been the best fit for Minnesota, just with that pass-happy offense. Hit him with all those checkdowns. They already talked about potentially bringing in Kirk Cousins again for this next season. I think he'd be a great fit there. For Derrick Henry, you already talked about the Ravens. I do think that would be a great play fit. They just have an offense that is ready to ground and pound, and good luck defending the RPO between Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry. Pick your poison. You're gonna get screwed either way. So on the next names we have listed up here, Saquon Barkley. It feels like a little bit of a swap here, but the Raiders showed a willingness to run the ball nonstop with Josh Jacobs. I think we could all agree that Saquon, when fully healthy, is a full upgrade there. And, they both threw the ball and ran the ball through Josh Jacobs. If Saquon went there, I don't think it's a popular pick, but I think that would be a great landing spot for him, just in terms of fantasy. And then Tony Pollard, it's a much tougher situation because we all hoped that the efficiency would stay there. He was in a phenomenal spot with Dallas. It's hard to argue there was a better spot for a bell cow to come up. However, if there was to be a better spot that comes up, I don't think that this will be the case. However, we just saw DeAndre Swift had a ton of success in Philadelphia. I think that Tony Pollard could put in work there. I think that they shown a little bit more of a willingness to throw the ball to the running back position. Uh, Mason, I see your stank face over there. You got something to say? You got something to say about Tony Pollard to the Birds?
Oh, I just love Philly.
You love him so much.
Yeah,
I can tell.
Nothing wrong to say about him.
No, a swelling pride in your heart for the Philly Birds here. No, I just think that in that role, I think Tony Pollard is a half tier up from DeAndre Swift. And I think that if they brought them into that system, Tony Pollard is not the bruiser that they gave him the role to be. Not even necessarily wanted him to be. They just did not bring in a bruiser. They talked about running the ball all off season, and then yet their power back is Rico Dowdle. You need somebody to complement Tony Pollard. The Eagles' offensive line can get it done without Tony Pollard needing to make the way after contact. He's going to get the space before contact. He's going to be able to punch the ball in a little bit more frequently than we saw with the Cowboys. And I think that overall in that role, if you give him the same space that DeAndre Swift saw this past year, I think that he's going to make a ton of big plays with that space. So that's where I land with Tony Pollard. Really quickly, before we get out of here, we got to talk about Justin Fields. Justin Fields it feels like it's the talk of the NFL right now. Where is he going to be traded? Let's just say the Bears are for sure going to trade him. What would be your ideal landing spot for Justin Fields this season? Mason, I'll kick it off to you first.
Steelers. I just think that Mike Tomlin will help. I think Him and Pickens could be nice. So he's got some good weapons that, you know, we all know Fields can run. I think a mixture between him and Warren and Najee will just make their run game. It could be one of the deadliest in the league. And, you know, when you got an open up run game like that, you know, you're going to get Fields getting some yardage, but it's also going to open up the pass for him because you got some deadly threats in the backfield.
I like that a lot. You know, between Deontay being, he can run any route on the route tree, Pickens, contested catch monster. If Fields is ever in worry, throw it up to Pickens.
Yeah.
Fryermuth is still no slouch. I feel like because of this down year, he's been looked on pretty poorly in terms of the fantasy aspect. But you know, he's still a fantastic tight end in terms of real NFL attributes. And then, like you said, not both Najee and Jalen Warren, if they can make the trade for him without giving up too much and add a little bit more to the offensive line room, I think that's a fantastic landing spot. I really like that a lot. Lee, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, so real quick, and I'm going to go with the other obvious one, but this came to mind as you were talking. So Saquon should go to Dallas to replace Tony Pollard. That would be nuts for him. And
We'll swap for him.
Austin Eckler should go to Kansas City and replace
Oh,
Joe.
man. Oh, don't do that to everyone. We all rooted against Kansas City this last year. I know Mason did. Don't do that to all
100
of us.
balls in that offense. I mean, they check down like no other at this point. And, yeah, that would be – he'd play a lot of receiver there, which is probably where he needs to be at this point in his career.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, though, I think Atlanta's been the big rumor the entire time. They have the weapons on offense. They have draft capital. He would have room to grow as well. They're not expecting to be a playoff contender. I just think the pressure in Pittsburgh might be a little bit much because they are a consistent winner. And if he struggles, you know, they could be chanting for Mason Rudolph again. Atlanta will not be chanting for Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke. He's going to have quite a bit of runway there and just a little bit more youth at the skill position. So I could definitely see him going there and thriving.
Dang, you just flat out disrespected Kenny Pickett. Went from Fields to Rudolph.
Yeah, they're not chanting for Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett is god awful. Oh man, I as about far down on the board as I can get for Kenny Pickett. All right, hear me out on this. Out of all of the teams that could use him, I think Seattle could be the answer. They have a ton of great wide receiver options there. There's DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett signed throughout the next 2 seasons. You got JSN as a dump off, Noah Fant as a very athletic tight end. You know what? Actually, Noah Fant is a free agent this year, so I take that one back. But imagine the RPO between any one of those 3 wide receivers, Justin Fields, Kenneth Walker, and even if Kenneth Walker goes down, Zach Charbonnet. That is going to be hard to stop. I think they could do the same thing we brought up with Pittsburgh. If they're able to trade for Justin Fields, not too much, spent on him, and they can go out and acquire a couple of offensive linemen. I think that could go a really long way with that talent. JSN and Tyler Lockett both create enough separation to the point where Justin Fields' inaccuracy is not going to be too much of a worry. And then DK Metcalf's a goddamn monster. So,
it's a family show, sir. It's a family show.
Oh, sorry.
Just kidding.
He's a good guy. DK Metcalf's super sweet. It's just I think a good fit for his skill set. There's not a lot of wrong you can do wrong with those wide receivers around you. And then on top of it, you got the running threat of Kenneth Walker. If there's any type of RPO that can go to the house, it's a Justin Fields, Kenneth Walker combo. You know, take your pick on the gap that you want to fill. If he hands it off, he makes the right decision. Kenneth Walker's gone. If you cover that gap, Kenneth Walker's supposed to fill. Justin Fields holds it, take the outside gap. He is gone. So I think that would be ideal.
I got one more to kind of, and I've seen it bantered around a little bit in the fan base, and I don't see it happening at all. But imagine a scenario that Washington trades one of their second round picks. They've got a few. They take Marvin Harrison Jr. with the second pick, and they put Justin Fields in a Cliff Kingsbury offense with Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. That could definitely work as well.
That'd be amazing. Do you think that so like in order to get Justin Fields, I think the last report I saw is a second plus. So you're saying they trade away their second round pick plus, maybe next year second, maybe next round second and third. You'd be happy with that as a Commanders fan getting that return?
Um, I mean, I'd be scared because we have to pay him. Pretty soon if
Right.
you're going to give that up for him, you're going to have to pay him. But I mean, Kingsbury's shown what he did with Kyler early. I think that would be a potential good fit. And he lit up Washington in Washington on Thursday night. So the fans and not the same front office, but some of the scouts got a close up look. I don't know if I would be thrilled. I would be cautiously optimistic if that were to happen.
Okay. No, and I can feel you there. Kyler, despite, not having a ton of options around him, had Hopkins early in the career. Or not early in his career, but early in the combination of Kingsbury and Murray. He threw pretty efficiently. He had the 3,787 yards with 24 TDs and 10 interceptions. I think Justin Fields could stay around there and then add a little bit more to the rushing game that Murray had that year with 423 yards. So I do like that as well. And obviously, I mean, I've talked about it enough on the pod. McLaurin is, my I will forever defend Terry McLaurin. If he could get even Justin Fields, I could see him having more towards a DJ Moore season. I believe DJ Moore was wide receiver 6 this past season, so maybe not quite there. But like a back end wide receiver 1, I could see Justin Fields supporting that in that type of system. All
I
right.
just want to see Terry McLaurin have a decent quarterback for once in his career.
That would be amazing. That'd be so nice, man. And like we said the same thing about DJ Moore for forever. So he just supported him into a top 6 wide receiver season. So we could get that for Terry McLaurin for just 1 year. So I could, I think we're done with the radio podcast. So I can shit on all of my goddamn league mates. Let them know who knows best. Terry McLaurin's that dude.
He's a great guy, great leader as well. He definitely deserves it. I mean, he's had 4 straight 1,000-yard years with Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, a broken Alex Smith. I mean, the guys that he's produced with. I mean, it's he just needs to be unlocked.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I love Alex Smith. So glad you mentioned him.
I mean, he was out there on one leg. Damn it.
Y'all both got your fandom with him. If only they could have sent him to the Browns for 1 winning season. I'd be there with y'all.
He'll be
All
Joe
right,
Flacco next year.
Sorry, go ahead, Mason.
He'll be like Joe Flacco for you guys next year.
Yes, legitimately. I got my dad texting me about Joe Flacco. I'm sorry, man. It's probably not going to happen for 2024. Hopefully we can find the next best Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for this week's of the Fantasy Rant podcast. Join us next week for more rookie breakdowns. Soon enough, we're going to be heading into free agent season, my personal favorite time of the off season. Talking about all of the moves and changes, NFL coaches changes, free agents, and rookies. We got it all for you here. Make sure to tune in. Subscribe to the the Stadium Rant YouTube channel. Have a good week, y'all.